Throughout the years, we've had a resurgence for the prequel trilogy, and that love has been expanded in things like Obi Wan. But we have some details on a new actor that is interested in reprising their role, and maybe some teases on a second season of Book of Boba Fett. We have some theories. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
Starting off, Book of Boba Fett. While it wasn't necessarily our favorite show, we have come to appreciate it in a number of ways. Talking to Eckhart's Ladder and Alex and Molly from Star Wars Explained has definitely made me more appreciate it.
It's definitely due for rewatch for me.
Yeah, I think it's about time. I have started a rewatch of The Mandalorian, but I think we should both get in on that.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode of, actually the first 2 or 3 episodes of season 1 of Mandalorian, and my goodness, that show holds up so well now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like it's understandable why the show got so big from that first season.
I really liked the beginning of Boba Fett.
Yeah, the sand people thing, that was pretty fun.
It didn't feel, and that's why I need to rewatch. It just hadn't felt like it didn't really come together, in my opinion. But I do want to rewatch it just to see if I still have those same feelings and kind of use what we've learned from other people and like, oh no, there is more appreciation for this.
Yeah, Book of Boba Fett definitely tried to do too much all at once, and I think that's where it ultimately failed. It tried to be a Boba Fett show. It tried to be an extension of The Mandalorian. It tried to showcase Boba Fett getting out of the pit, what he did after the fact, set up some new ways that Tatooine takes place, and like expand on that. Like it did way too much for its own good, and I think that's where it really floundered. Even Tamora Morrison hopped on Instagram, I think a month or 2 ago, and completely roasted the show.
Wow.
He's like, yeah, and then you got this Mandalorian guy that shows up and took over my show. I think that's about what he said. And it's true.
Yeah.
Even Boba Fett himself was like, yeah, it's not quite what I was expecting when we came into the show originally. I think it's a fair criticism. I think they tried to do way too much and not really capitalize on Boba Fett's part. But I wanted to talk about like what a season 2 could look like. We've been having a lot of bits and pieces come out. Like Robert Rodriguez has said that he's not opposed to coming back and doing more Star Wars stuff. I think honestly though, he was the weakest part in terms of like what episodes he directed was always the weirdest and slowest of them, which is weird because in Mando season 2, his episodes were rocking with Boba Fett.
I definitely feel like there's room for a season 2. I definitely think we need to see Boba in his role as Kingpin over this huge trading route and whatnot.
Yeah, because we didn't get that in the first season.
And we got a lot of potential and apparently imminent bad guys coming after him, which felt very much like, whoa, where do these guys come from? Why are the pikes here? Like, what the crap? But I think we could definitely see more of that fleshed out and give us another shot at Boba Fett being the epic guy that we've seen him in Mandalorian and in the past.
So I think that's where Boba Fett as a character really has his strength. It's less so on his individual personality because we didn't get any of that. In the original trilogy, we just heard him say, as you wish, I think. Like he only said maybe like 5 phrases in the entire original trilogy.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, heck yeah. I love that. I love a mysterious character. That's why we're all interested. That's why we all want to hear this guy's story. Yeah.
And then he was honestly like, we went and rewatched the Star Wars holiday special and seeing him in that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, he's
Animation
epic.
looked weird, but like the whole story was pretty sweet. How he was talking with Darth Vader, how he was like perceived as this good guy, like utilizing very different aspects of what we see and haven't really seen since of Boba Fett's character. And I think they could really tie in because Boba Fett's this interesting character because we see Jango Fett in the prequel trilogy and we see young Boba Fett and then in the Clone Wars we see a lot more of Boba Fett's like younger days and his training with the Clone Corps, training with the bounty hunters and Cad Bane, and I think they tried the Cad Bane Boba Fett thing a little too early in that story because it came out of nowhere. And I have friends who didn't watch Clone Wars and they were like, what's up with this dude? Like, didn't care at all. Like, yeah, well, that was kind of anticlimactic. They just shot each other. Not realizing the breadth of the story. And I think that's where Boba Fett really, it lost a lot of fans.
It was a strange combination of slow storytelling, but yet not enough information.
Yeah, like they took their time, but they took their time with the wrong things. Instead of, like, Boba spent most of his time in the back to tank.
Yes. Boba Fett's personality pretty much consisted of back to tank. But that's why I was saying I really liked the beginning, because we did feel like we got this gradual progression of like his connection to Tatooine and all that. So then jumping into with all these characters and different stuff, it's like, now we're not, like, the pacing was so not, it wasn't there with the end. The end just kind of,
it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, just spewed a bunch of things at us, and we're like, oh my gosh, this could mean a lot. But it didn't feel like it, because we had so much time at the beginning, and then I don't know. Yeah,
there's a lot of different pieces that they could play around with in Boba Fett, and I think that's where a season 2 is so exciting for me in particular, like both of us really, but where I think it could bring something very unique is the fact that they already did all of that setup, and now it's what we kind of expected season 1 to be, where we get into how Boba Fett is going to rule Tatooine and this specific outpost, how he's going to deal with the Hutts, how he's going to deal with these different spice trading routes, how he's going to deal with the Sand People, how he's going to deal with the other people that are reliant and also expected things to be run differently. Like, let's get into that side of things, not so much the side tangents with the Pikes, not so much the side tangents with Mandalorian, not so much with the side tangents of the flashbacks. Like, get into the weeds of what Boba Fett is and Fennec Shand and how all of these things are going to come together. I think that's where it's exciting. And I think it's indicative of kind of like a theme with Star Wars right now, because Obi Wan did the same thing of like, it went way too long in the wrong ways to set up the story that we honestly didn't want to see told. And then it set it up and like, man, a season 2 would be cool. Season 1 was, I personally hated Obi-Wan, the show. I did not like it, but I could see where season 2 could be really exciting. They failed with the same thing of like, okay, we have to deal with, we have to put Darth Vader in there for some reason, because that's where all the marketing is around, even though he shouldn't be in there. It was this mishmash, and I think that's where a season 2 with Book of Boba Fett could really have its strengths.
This could be like the spotlight one. I really feel like they didn't even touch, I mean, I'm sure they did, but they didn't really get into Boba Fett or Fennec Shand on their like very unconventional morality, you know, like just having that really gray character, I feel like could be really cool to see, especially in a leadership role.
And Fennec Shand was awesome. Yeah,
in this like super seedy backwards town. I mean, like we want to see it. That's all we want to see. Come on.
And they go even deeper into that Western aesthetic. I think would be cool, because they had bits and pieces of it. They had the shootout with Cad Bane, and hey, bring Cad Bane back.
Do it.
Obviously, there's the weirdness of like, okay, no one's actually dead in Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. But we saw things beeping. Like, we all have an idea that he was probably not dead. Bring him back and then set that up as like the big bad, but set it up. Don't just have him come out of nowhere. I think that would be good.
And obviously we're gonna see, I mean, they didn't save Cobb. They didn't save him for nothing. Come on.
Yeah, there's got to be something. Yeah, like, so where's my boy Cobb Vanth?
He's got to be like the mayor or like the
sheriff.
Yeah, the sheriff or something of the town. Like, we've got to see more of that. So
do it for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, we know he survived. So.
Yeah, exactly. He was in the Becta.
Yeah, they can't have done that and not thought, well, just in case there's another season. Come on.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome. It'd be awesome to see Boba and Cobb Vanth and Fennec Shand and those different dynamics as they kind of bring more law and order to this very backwards, very hazy morality town, and then get into the details of like what Boba Fett's motivations are. Of like, he is someone who was born and bred to fight and has only known that. What does it look like for him to actually challenge that belief and move forward in these ways make a bunch of buddies.
And we've seen with Andor that having a story all about like the interworkings and politics and stuff like that, we are here for it. Like, sign me up. Yes, it works. And I throw a little Western flair on it. Yeah. Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
I think it'd be freaking awesome. We mentioned it in the beginning, obviously, but fan favorite characters. The prequel trilogy has definitely come into its own when it comes to Star Wars fans and becoming more appreciated. Fans that watched the prequel trilogy when they were young are now growing up, and they are wanting that nostalgia, but also to bring back that era, because there's so many different bits and pieces that era did so well. Just the rise of the Jedi, the fall of the Jedi, seeing just so many, like this light of like this time of excess, but also the struggles with the politics and all that stuff. Like you said, Andor is the perfect kind of way that you can look at. Yeah, you can do politics in Star Wars and people aren't bored about it. Yep. And I think that's where things could really bring in more light and more fun things. And I think there's a spotlight for that. On that note, though, we had Ahmed Best come back in Mandalorian Season 3 and had his own Jedi role. Him obviously playing Jar Jar Binks in the prequel trilogy, so he had this big return to the screen moment. Ewan McGregor coming back to reprise the role of Obi Wan. Everyone really liked that. Then you have Hayden Christensen coming back and really finding the love as a community that he didn't have when the prequels came out.
It's true. We are seeing so much of this turnaround from the audience of being like, oh my gosh, like it's so crazy how that is, how people like detested these characters
and the actors
and stuff. Like, they gave them such a bad rap, especially for the prequels, but now we're like, bring them back, we love you all. Like,
it's like poetry, it rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Eventually we're going to get to the point with the sequel trilogy of that too. Kids growing up that watched the sequel trilogy and got introduced to Star Wars will eventually get to that point. And I think that's how kind of fandoms work. You have the nostalgia, you have like the rise and fall, and I think it's going to be an interesting time as we look forward. But going back to the prequel trilogy, we have another actor that is interested or would be down to return to reprise their role, and that's Natalie Portman. In an interview, she said that she hasn't been reached out or anything, but we'd be open to return to the prequels. She also went on an interview streak, I think a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two, and said that obviously it was a career-making moment for her, but looking back at those movies, it's pretty cringy.
Oh, sure.
So you have, like, she knows what she's about. But I think I want to really have this discussion, because I think, too, like, one, Padme's super fun as a character.
Oh, man. She was my character.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Oh, yeah. And you're a big Natalie Portman stan as well.
Yep.
When we were at Star Wars Celebration, we went to the Costumes of Padme panel, where a lot of 4 cosplayers got on stage to talk about the process of cosplaying as Padme and the breadth of cosplays available, which ones are the easiest to start, and that was awesome to watch. My brother and I went to a art exhibit, and it was the costumes of Star Wars, and probably maybe about 40% of the costumes there were Padme's, and then another 30% were Palpatine's, and the rest was the rest of things.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I need to go.
Yeah.
I need to go.
Next time it goes, we should definitely do that. But what does this mean for Star Wars, and kind of what would we like to see from Padme returning to the series? I'm gonna lean on you here. What would you like to see when it comes to Padme?
It's kind of hard because we know how she dies, and she dies pretty early. So I feel like the only way we're gonna see her is in flashbacks.
You think so?
I don't know.
Well, we've got the book series. You've read those. And it dives a lot into kind of the early days and the middle. Like I feel like there's a lot in between episodes 2 and 3 that we could get into.
Oh, for sure. There is a whole political breadth that we have not seen for Padme. Also, especially in the Clone Wars, we see her go and do very diplomatic things on a lot of different planets.
Yes.
So I feel like there is definitely room to see her and Anakin, see them both kind of see more of their relationship, honestly. Because like the only times we saw them, it was all like, oh, we're doing great. You know, like there's got to be some conflict here. Come on.
Obi Wan stopped by and said hello.
Yeah.
What? Obi Wan stopped by?
Yeah. Pretty much all we've seen is Anakin just freak out.
Yeah. So I'm on book 2 of the second trilogy of Thrawn. So Thrawn Alliances, not the original trilogy, but the reboot canon one. And that book gets a lot into the relationship of Padme and Anakin. And the whole premise of that is like Thrawn and Darth Vader are working together, and you get flashbacks of young Anakin and Thrawn in the Clone Wars era.
Younger, not quite, like not baby Anakin.
Not baby Anakin, of course. Yeah, it's when Padme and Anakin, I believe, had already been married. So it's after that, and Padme has gone on a mission with one of her handmaidens and gets lost, and Anakin is trying to like search for her, and she's doing all the like boom.
Oh yeah,
I'm Padme. I don't need help.
She's girl power.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's definitely stuff that can be brought into the fray there. We have examples of it in the book series for sure.
For sure. In the books, the trilogy of the Padme
and the Handmaidens.
Yeah.
The Padme trilogy.
The Queen trilogy, I'm pretty sure it's what it's called. They really do get into like different, really interesting things. It really actually like maybe relive all the good Amidala days and whatnot. Anyway, so I feel like there's a lot there, even just relationships with handmaidens and again, getting into the political side of her job. I mean, just what she was doing. She is
a senator. And we get bits and pieces of that through the Clone Wars. I think that's another opportunity that they could play around with and really get into some of the big moments in the Clone Wars and what that means for Padme and Padme's perspective. We get Ahsoka's, we get Anakin's, we get Obi-Wan's perspective. We get a little bit of Padme, but we don't necessarily have her as the focus. And I think it's the perfect opportunity going to Star Wars Celebration and seeing Padme cosplay all the way from little girls with like, I think they're 5 or so, all the way up to adults cosplaying as Padme. Like she as a character has so much love for her. And I think there's a perfect opportunity to have this another round of representation and to get past the bad blood around her death in The Revenge of the Sith and her dying from sadness.
Fair.
So I think there's an opportunity to really retake her character and bring her into this new focus around Star Wars. And I think it'd be awesome to see The Handmaid's Tale, but the handmaidens, like The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh my, no, we're not doing Handmaid's Tale. Not in Star Wars, please, no. So much trauma from that book.
You know what I mean, though? Like a focus, like it could be around Padme and seeing like maybe we focus on the double that she uses and you have the younger interaction or just follow Padme through the years and these key moments. I think would be really fun, or just like on a single mission. So that's something we get in the book series, we get in the comics, we get in the video games. We have these moments. It doesn't necessarily have to be this big well-to-do around a galaxy-changing moment. We can totally see Padme on this one mission to this one planet and have that fill the gaps and have that retell Padme's story.
So do you see this more as like a one-off episode somewhere, or is this
I think it could be like an anthology where you get like moments, but they kind of connect to each other, but they don't necessarily have to. I'd love to see like a limited series, not like Obi Wan, where it's only 6 episodes. I think minimum it has to be 8, so you get the full breadth of that story. It definitely seems like 6 is too short. Or if you do 6, like have each individual episode be like an hour and 20 minutes. Like we haven't seen anything in Star Wars around that front. So I think that could be interesting to see. I just honestly want to see more of Padme in Star Wars doing Padme things instead of like supporting Anakin or supporting Obi Wan or supporting the Senate. Like I want to see what her focus is in the galaxy, like we get to see Leia do, and we get to see those big moments. And what does it look like for Padme to take charge in the Star Wars universe now?
Yeah, and I feel like the only time that we really got to see her take charge was, I mean, obviously she was queen.
Yeah,
yes.
But how old was she? Like 14?
She was like 14 or so.
Yeah.
But really, I feel like the only time we see her like usurp the powers that be or whatever is when in the Clone Wars when they are on Geonosis and she's like, well, I'm going after Obi Wan, not meh. So I really feel like there's a lot that needs to be represented a little better for her, because she is such a strong character. Yeah. And she's been kind of portrayed as petulant. Yeah. And we need to see her as more like girl boss.
What would that look like for you? Like, what would you want to see in a Padme series? I
feel like there's a lot of good moments in the books and things, like what you were saying with Thrawn, and just... It's hard. That's a really hard spot, because usually she's always overshadowed by Anakin. Yeah, coming in, saving
even
the
in
day,
Thrawn,
and
like, she's not the focus. She's the like motivator for Thrawn and Anakin to work together.
Right. So she's in a really hard spot.
It could honestly be like a coming of age story with young Padme, like going into the queendom. Like, what does that process look like? It could be something. We're going to see another young Star Wars led series when we look at something like Skeleton Crew. What does like a young Padme look like? We saw young Leia in Obi Wan, and she was freaking awesome. Like, honestly, the best part of that show was young Leia. What does that look like to see her struggle with the emotions of becoming a queen at such a young age, leading the entire planet of Naboo? That could be an interesting time period. And then we don't have to worry about Anakin taking over the spotlight. Right. Because if Anakin's in there, everyone's going to want to focus on Anakin because, well, Padme has a big following.
He's the chosen one.
He's the chosen one. He's the one that like brings the balance to the Force or whatever. Like, that's his focus, and he's going to be in a story. It's like Darth Vader. It's the Darth Vader problem in Star Wars. Anytime that Darth Vader's there, he takes over the entire show, movie, whatever. Look at Obi Wan. I think Rogue One is honestly the best version of that, where he's there in the background. He's not necessarily like moving the story forward, but it seems like he's going to be there, and he's going to take that spotlight, at least for a moment, or the entire show like Obi-Wan was.
Yeah, it's a good point. Ugh, man. But I want to see it. I want to be able to see Padme shine even with Anakin there. Like,
yeah, exactly. But I think we need to set up Padme first so we can have that payoff where we understand her character instead of like, oh, she's just the whiny princess that they make fun of all the dresses that she has in Phantom Menace. And it's the senator that they have to save and protect in Attack of the Clones. Right. And it's the pregnant Anakin that they have to, oh, okay, we can't handle you right now because you're really emotional right now. Right. Like, we have examples in each of the prequel movies of her getting like belittled by the story.
Of her being a woman and just them putting her down and this like, oof. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. But as we see in mostly the books, I think the books is where they handle it the best of her character. We see the strength of her character. And we see how something very awesome could be had with her character. And it needs to be a Padme thing instead of just Anakin, and also there's Padme there.
Yeah, side piece Padme.
Yeah. But I want to know your thoughts and expectations. What does it look like for Padme to come back into the fray? Would it be as much of a focus as a series, or would it be something like a cameo? Let us know in the comments, and I would love to hear that discussion and see what you have to say on that. But hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Star Wars Uplink. We greatly appreciate all your support. You can find us on all the places. Leave us a review. It helps us out a ton. Head over to iTunes on basically any platform, even on Windows PC, or the Apple Podcast app. It greatly helps us out a ton, and we'd love to hear that feedback. As always, thanks for watching, and hey, may the Force be with you.